Behind every legend lies a reason. This is Myth and Motive.
Sarah's bones didn't just break, they powdered under the weight of her own heartbeat. Her doctors called it a medical impossibility, a skeleton turning to chalk while the patient remained conscious. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and something else, the dry, mineral scent of crushed seashells. Every whisper in the hallway made her flinch, knowing the vibration alone could fracture her ribs. Her skin grew cold and paper-thin, stretched taut over a framework that was dissolving from within. Then came the scratching. Not from outside her door, but from inside her own body. It was the sound of what remained of her skeleton, shifting like broken glass in a velvet bag. And in that moment, Sarah realized her body wasn't failing. Something was being born inside her. A woman woke one morning with a strange, cold ache deep in her arm. A week later, a simple hug from her husband. Shattered 3 of her ribs. The diagnosis was chilling. Her bones weren't just brittle. Something was fundamentally wrong within her skeleton. They were slowly, irrevocably, turning to glass. 3 years ago, Sarah Miller's life in Austin was normal. The scent of cut grass and barbecue smoke filled those ordinary afternoons. She was a graphic designer, a hiker, a mother to 2-year-old Lily. Her husband, Mike, taught high school history. Their lives were a study in quiet contentment. Their greatest concern was what to grill that Saturday. Sarah was the picture of health. Until the first crack appeared, the air in the doctor's office felt thick, carrying the sterile scent of antiseptic and something faintly metallic. It started with the blue tinge, a cold, unnatural stain spreading beneath her skin. A whisper of dread coiled in her gut as the doctor's chart slipped from her numb fingers. The whites of Sarah's eyes took on a faint, cerulean hue. Her doctor in Austin dismissed it as an unusual allergic reaction. Then the aches began, deep, bone-deep coldness. It felt as if she'd been packed in ice, a chill that seeped through to her marrow. One morning, as she reached for her coffee mug, her wrist simply gave way with a sickening snap. The fracture was clean and catastrophic, caused by a motion she'd performed countless times before. Mike became a detective, his desperation palpable as he scoured medical journals late into the night. He haunted online forums, where whispers of similar cases gathered like shadows in digital corners. The sterile scent of antiseptic from his research mingled with the stale air of his midnight vigil, each click revealing another impossible anomaly. Sarah's desperate pilgrimage led her from specialist to specialist: rheumatology, endocrinology, orthopedics. They tested for osteoporosis, for rare cancers. All results returned negative, sterile, and useless. Meanwhile, Sarah's world was shrinking, the walls closing in with each dead-end diagnosis. The air grew heavy with the scent of antiseptic and silent desperation. The hiking trail was abandoned. Then came the frantic retrieval of Lily. Then the desperate drop. But the specter of a fracture, that sharp, bone-deep possibility, held dominion over every movement, every ragged inhalation. The air inside the car grew thick with the scent of cold sweat and stale fear. Each turn of the wheel, each press of the pedal, was measured against that silent, internal ticking, a dread that had weight and a terrible, metallic taste. The escalation, finally, at a major research hospital in Boston, they identified it. But the diagnosis felt like stepping into a medical nightmare. Osteogenesis imperfecta, type 5, a name that carried the weight of something ancient and terrifyingly rare. No, this was different, rarer. It was a spontaneous genetic mutation, a single miswritten letter in Sarah's entire genetic code. The doctors called it a KK, dominant negative mutation. Her body's collagen, the protein scaffold for bones, skin, tendons, wasn't forming as it should. Instead of flexible strength, it became rigid and unstable. A brittle, crystalline lattice spread through her tissues. Each movement carried the dry, crackling whisper of something breaking from within. Narrator: picture collagen as the steel rebar within concrete. But Sarah's rebar was fashioned from something far more treacherous: sugar glass. Each minor impact wasn't just a bump. It was a potential catastrophe waiting to unfold. Her bones weren't merely breaking, they were disintegrating from within. They were shattering, splintering into crystalline fragments. Surgeries became impossible. Screws and plates refused to hold within the brittle matrix. Her bones turned to dust beneath the surgical drill, the air thick with the smell of ozone and powdered calcium. Today, Sarah sits carefully supported in her wheelchair, every movement a conscious calculation against fragility. Her arms rested in soft braces, a fragile smile touching her lips, but her eyes held a weary, haunted depth. The psychological toll had become its own inescapable confinement. A door slamming downstairs would make her flinch violently, the sharp sound cutting through the quiet. Even the excited pitter-patter of Lily's small feet now triggered a visceral dread, turning innocent sounds into sources of terror. Mike learned to move like a ghost through his own home. Their love, once expressed through kitchen dances and embraces, had become a careful ballet of inches and whispered assurances. Sarah's body had become a haunted house she was forced to inhabit. Then, at 6:30, the music dropped out entirely. The crisis struck on a Tuesday. 4-year-old Lily awoke from a nightmare, her mind clouded by sleep's terror. Forgetting the rule, she bolted from her room into the dark hallway. She launched herself toward her parents' bed, seeking her mother's warmth in the suffocating dark. In slow motion, the rustle of blankets, a small body landing, then a sharp, guttural cry of pain from Sarah. The weight of a 35-pound child was all it took. Her femur, the strongest bone in the human body, fractured into a dozen jagged pieces. The pain, she would later recall, wasn't fire. It was something far more chilling. The cold didn't just bite her skin. It detonated within her, a silent frost blooming through her core. In the ER, chaos was muted, distant. The frantic beeps and shouts heard as if through thick water. Mike stood frozen, his face the color of ash, staring at an x-ray that looked less like bone and more like a window pane shattered by a bullet. The surgeons could only watch, their tools useless, as the air grew heavy with the sterile scent of ozone and dread. They could only manage the agony, a searing torment that the strongest opioids barely grazed. As Sarah drifted in a narcotic haze, a realization pierced the fog, colder and more absolute than the pain. This was her future. Not a single dramatic moment, but a slow, relentless erosion. Every breath became a countdown to the next wave of suffering, each moment a grain of sand in an infinite hourglass. A simple embrace, an involuntary sneeze, a single misstep. Any of these mundane acts could unleash it. The air in the room grew heavy with the scent of ozone and old dust. Every fiber of his being screamed that the slightest disturbance would be catastrophic. It was a razor's edge of normalcy, and he was balanced upon it, breath held. Her flesh was a prison of crystal, and the sentence was life, the present. Sunlight streams through a window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the still air. Sarah watches her daughter, Lily, drawing on the floor several feet away, the simple scratch of crayon on paper the only sound. A profound, unshakable dread coils in Sarah's gut, the terrifying peace after the storm, knowing the curse sleeps but is not broken. Sarah exists today, but living has been redefined. The distance between her and her family is now a tangible, suffocating presence. She will never again hold her daughter, feel the warmth of that small body against hers. Mike's embrace will forever be incomplete, his arms unable to fully close around the emptiness that now inhabits her. Her entire existence is confined to a wheelchair and an air-cushioned bed, a life of meticulous, terrifying caution. Every cell in her body carries the mutation. There is no cure, only relentless management. The sterile scent of antiseptic mixes with the faint, metallic tang of fear in the air. Each movement is calculated, each breath measured. A prison built not of bars, but of her own fragile biology. Only the waiting. They call it a disease of brittle bones, but that's not quite accurate. It's a disease of separation. The true cruelty isn't the physical agony. It's witnessing your entire world, every person you cherish, remain agonizingly close, and being severed from it all by an imperceptible, suffocating void. Her body is a grotesque masterpiece of genetic error, a unique architecture of horror. The air carries the sterile scent of ozone and the faint, metallic tang of iron. A single, lonely cello note hangs in the heavy silence, vibrating with unresolved dread. This leaves us with one haunting question, whispered in the cold, damp air. What is the self? Is it the mind, the memories, the love we hold, or is it merely the vessel that contains them? And what becomes of it when that vessel is crafted from glass? A faint, sharp scent of ozone and old dust prickles the air. The cold of the glass surface seeps into the skin, a deep, unnatural chill that feels less like temperature and more like an absence. From within, a sound emerges, not a voice, but a dry, crystalline scratching, like fingernails on a pane from the other side. A primal understanding dawns, not in the mind, but in the gut. A hollow dread at the realization that the barrier is not for keeping something out, but for keeping something in. The final frame. Lily blows a spectral kiss from the shadows. Across the void, Sarah's trembling hand reaches out to catch it. She presses the captured light to her cheek, a gesture of terrible intimacy. The image dissolves into perfect darkness, leaving only a whispered warning hanging in the air. Handle with care.
If the legend hooked you, subscribe and open the next case.